Hey y'all, it's Heel Heat time.
Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles and this is our TNA show for the week. Let's jump right into it. First off, we have the so-so portion of the show. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just there and it'll be forgotten in a couple weeks. We had Kurt Angle versus Rockstar Spud, an unwilling participant. To me, matches like this are a waste of a guy of Kurt Angle's talent. Not saying that Rockstar Spud is terrible or anything in that matter, but you're putting him in goofy little matches like this, and when Kurt Angle should be in the main event picture, he's deserving, only to lead it to Ethan Carter getting involved and then Willow coming out and making a save. I don't know, just to me it's not the best way to use Kurt Angle, in my opinion. Next up, we had Abyss versus Magnus. Abyss wins and wins his contract, which we'll talk about in a second. Unfortunately, when we split them up the way we do, sometimes it gets a little bit out of order. Magnus gets purposely DQ'd by mule kicking Abyss. Eric Young runs down to try and make the save. He gets the same treatment, gets kicked and beaten with a chair just as Abyss had done. The match itself was underwhelming, as well as the fact of, and this is an ongoing issue for me with TNA, Abyss has only been heel for about 2 months. So now you're turning him face again. And seems to be a problem. TNA, they make these heel face turns, like as soon as you're done one feud, you become a face. Then you feud with somebody, and then when that feud's done, you're a heel. It's hard for a casual fan to follow. Heck, it's hard for even dedicated fans. I watch the TNA show every week, and there's a couple people on the roster I gotta go, okay, is he a heel or is he a face? And some you don't really know, because they switch him back and forth so many times, and it's one of my pet peeves with TNA, and I wish they wouldn't do stuff like that. I wish it would be more planned out. If we're going to make Abyss heel, he's heel for 10, 12 months. If we're going to make Magnus face, he's face for a year and a half. You know, long-term planning for what to do with a character. Now, occasionally you'll turn someone either heel or face and it'll flop miserably and you have to abort that. I'm okay with that occasionally. Not seeming to be modus operandi for the company. Now, coming off of that, we're going to go into our bad segments of the night. I only thought there was really one bad portion, and that was the promo segment with Madison Rayne, the beautiful people, and Brittany. It just seemed very forced and contrived. I hate to almost say this because I enjoy Madison and the beautiful people. I've not seen enough of Brittany to form an opinion on her just yet. I kind of hope they keep their promo segments to backstage where they can be more maybe edited and cleaned up and reshot so it doesn't come off as robotic as this one did. Just my opinion, but I just thought it was the downer of the night. Now, coming from that, we're going to go on to our question of the week. Now, the question last week was, what is the best thing in TNA? And we have some answers from our friends before we get into ours here. First is from Silver84. The best thing currently in TNA is that they are slowly trying to build up new wrestlers. I still think they need more knockouts, X Division tag teams, no doubt about that, but with the Wolves, Tigre Uno, Sonata, EC3, Shaw, and a returning Kenny King, I think it's a good mix of good wrestlers and interesting characters. I agree with you there. Everyone you mentioned there, to me, has been impressive. I do agree that they need more tag teams, more X Division, more knockouts to make those divisions work better, in my opinion, as well. Next up, we have our friend Zombies 40. I think the best thing in TNA right now is that it's unpredictable. And in this watered down era of wrestling, that is a good thing. I agree with you, it is unpredictable, but is it a good unpredictable or a bad unpredictable? That's where the question lies. And right now, like I said last week, TNA is about 50-50 to me. Half the time they have great shows, half the time they have terrible shows. They need to get more, I would say, the 70-30 mix. No one's ever going to have all great shows. But if you give me 7 out of 10 of your shows are great or good, I'm a happy man. Next up is from our friend Justin Brizantine, and I hope I'm saying your last name right. I think the best thing about TNA is they have so little money and such a short roster at the moment that they are forced to feature newer talent like the Wolves and EC3. Kind of echoing what we heard from Silver 84. I agree, and that's what I was going to bring up, is the influx of new talent. If you've seen the previous shows, Tigre Udo and Sonata have really blown me away on how talented they are. EC3, I have no idea why the WWE cut this guy. He's got an it factor to him. And to me, Samuel Shaw is one of the best new talents that I've seen in a long time. And his gimmick is one of the most original gimmicks I've seen ever, period. And the writing behind it has been tremendous. Now, coming off of that, we're going to go to our question of the week for next week. And it kind of touches on what we just mentioned. We have guys like Jeff Jarrett and AJ Styles are now gone. Who is going to be the new face of TNA? Let us know what you think. Hit us up on Facebook. Hit us up on Twitter. Put it down where? Down there in the comments. Now, coming off of that, we're going to go into our good segment of the week. The stuff that I actually like. And we're going to put a shocker up first, folks, because you know I don't like these. The beginning's promo segment with Magnus firing Abyss and MVP coming out and offering Abyss a chance to join the roster if he beats Magnus, which of course we just talked about he did. To me, this opening promo actually served a purpose, and it wasn't your generic, I'm the owner, I'm the general manager, I'm going to make this match, I'm going to try and screw this person promo, which we're so used to seeing. This actually made sense, set up a new feud going forward, which is why I was okay with it and why I put it in the good segment. Next up, we have Kenny King versus Bobby Lashley. And I know the match ended with a countout with Kenny King kind of running away. To me, the reason I like this match is twofold. For the newer viewers that aren't as familiar with Bobby Lashley, it shows him as being a monster, as being a big threat in the company, and it shows Kenny King kind of playing a cowardly heel role, which up until this point we've seen him as a cocky, brash heel. So it adds a little depth and character to Kenny King while reiterating that Lashley is a guy that takes seriously. I enjoyed that. I thought it was a good character development for both wrestlers. Next up, we have Austin Aries versus MVP, a match that was made last week with Austin Aries being upset that he's been kept off of television. Now, I thought the match was great. I enjoyed their match. The only thing I had an issue with, and it wasn't a big enough issue that it ranked it down match-wise on the show, was I would have had Austin Aries beat MVP. Austin Aries is not far removed from being a world champion in TNA, and technically right now MVP is an executive at TNA, so that's the only minor gripe I had with it. I thought the two of them put on an excellent match. I enjoyed what I've seen from both of them. I think going forward, if they continue this as a feud, we could get more matches, better, bigger, cage matches, all that kind of good stuff could come from it. They're both excellent talkers, so they could set the feud up very well. Now, after that, we had the reunion of Beer Money, James Storm and Bobby Roode, versus Bully Ray and Gunner. Basically combining two feuds into one. A little match Beer Money shows. Beer Money gets the win, shows why they're one of the great tag teams in the history of wrestling. Bully Ray furthers his face turn, doing the signature Dudley stuff, the what's up, the Gunner get the tables, which is all well and good. Everybody knows I'm a big Bully Ray fan. I like this match. I enjoyed the Beer Money reunion. I'd kind of like to see a Beer Money run to take both the guys away from the world title picture for a minute. Let some other guys be in that picture. Bobby Roode, I think, is the best world champion TNA's ever had. James Storm, I think they really missed the boat on his championship run only being a week long. I think he could have been someone that was built up huge and been the face of the company, and they kind of missed the ball on him. And since that time, he's kind of, their push of him has regressed. So, a little bit disappointing on that, but either way, seeing Beer Money is always a great thing. Speaking of reunited teams, we have the Beautiful People versus Gail Kim and Madison Rayne, who've agreed to put apart their differences to fight against the common enemy. The Beautiful People, the cohesive unit, pick up the win. Nothing better. Well, good wrestling is good wrestling, people. It gives me great joy when we see a great women's match, or divas, or knockouts, or whatever you want to call them. Just as much as it gives me great joy to see a great men's match, a great X Division match, a great tag team match. In my opinion, I think you have to have all in the mix. You have to have different styles to appeal to different people all on one wrestling show, which technically it would be a wressling variety show. And TNA has the makings to do something like that, where you could have an X Division match, and you could have good brawling, hardcore style matches, good tag team matches, good scientific wrestling matches, good women's matches. And anytime I see a prominent women's match such as this one going on late in the show, and the women go out there and produce, it gives me a little smile in my face to say, maybe we could get wrestling back to that, where the women just aren't eye candy, that they're actually there to wrestle and give us some wrestling entertainment. Because to me, and this is my opinion, the name on the marquee is always going to say wrestling, and that's what draws me. More than the promos, more than the characters, more than the gimmicks. Good, solid, professional wrestling matches are what make me the happiest. Now, that being said, my favorite segments of the whole night, and I saved the best for last on purpose, were the Mr. Anderson at Samuel Shaw's family home, meeting his mother, who's a red-haired woman named Christy. I thought that alone, that revelation, added so much depth to the character, added so much of a creepiness. The overall June Cleaver-ness, I guess if that's a saying, word. 50 style mother that she was acting like, making apple pie, being such a nice and cheesy, warm, open guest. Then you go into his bedroom and it's almost like a child's room with the block lettering, the bunk beds. Then we see the brawl between Anderson and Samuel Shaw, and we never find out what happens to Anderson, which I thought all of it was brilliant in my opinion. The Samuel Shaw character to me is a breath of fresh air into wrestling in general, and I think it's one of the best characters I've seen in a very, very long time. Very innovative, very well written, very well thought out. Kudos to TNA for pulling the trigger on such a strange and weird character and such an awesome thing to add to the mix. Now, coming off of that, we're going to go right into our rating scale. Now, you know, if you've seen the show, we have a show before. We have a 1 to 5 rating. 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. 1's a Garrett Bischoff, 2's a Jesse Goddard, 3's a James Storm, 4's a Christopher Daniels, 5's a Bobby Roode. I'm actually going to give this show a 4, Christopher Daniels. I thought it was very solid. Not too much I didn't like. A couple of finishes I thought were shaky. But other than that, I thought it was a pretty good show. It kept my enjoyment. The sprinkling of the Samuel Shaw, Mr. Anderson segments in throughout the show kept me interested on where it was going. It kind of reminded me of what WCW did when WCW was running great, having those kind of things sprinkled throughout a show. The one that sticks out in my mind the most is where Raven took Canyon to his home and showed Canyon that he was a rich kid from a good neighborhood and broke the fourth wall, talked to the camera, all that good stuff, which was great at the time. I thought it was very interesting and very groundbreaking, and just like this, I thought this was very interesting, very groundbreaking, almost harkening back to the time where Alex Shelley would go out with a video camera and videotape things that happened in real life to the wrestlers like Christian, Sting. But anyway, I digress. The whole show, in my opinion, I thought was really good, really well woven together. You had promos that led to matches that led to furthering of gimmicks, furthering of careers. In my opinion, it was a 4. It was a Christopher Daniels. Pretty good show in all in all. But basically, that's what I have to say about that. My name is George Coles, and this has been another episode of Heel Heat.